Wait, hi again. This week on KariKonnect, I am talking about something that we often don't talk about, but we strive for. Our parents strive for it, our ancestors strive for it, our friends strive for it, we strive for it, but we don't talk about it much. What am I talking about? Money. One big entity of our lives that we constantly struggle for, but often hide. Because what if the other person gets jealous? What if, they find me stupid? Finlect is here to solve all those troubles. That's what Monica Punjabi, Head of Content and Strategy at Finlect, shares with me this week on KariKonnect. She tells me how people can save money, why for the youth it is extremely important to be mindful about money, and how that saving and your efforts to save can actually help you survive this pandemic situation. Look out for the interview. I'm sure you're going to like it. See you there. Hi, Monica. Thank you so much for joining KariKonnect today. And I am so glad to be doing this with you. It's amazing that you contacted, and I'm really glad that you did that. So thank you for that.
You're always welcome. I think it's a great platform to kind of talk to individuals and see what they have to offer and just kind of learn from everybody that who comes on this show. So kudos to you on managing to do this, and I know it's super hard. It takes a lot of effort. So thank you for pulling together these wonderful people and allowing them to share their experiences so that people like me can learn from it.
Most welcome, and thank you for that compliment. Tell me, what do you do at Finlect? What is Finlect about for starters? And also how your role at Finlect has, helped you evolve intellectually on personal finance. I'm going to use the Finlect. I got to connect, so that's why.
Okay. So, Finlet is essentially an application that allows you to track your expenses, to budget your expenses, to see what, the patterns are in the way you spend your money. Now, you might be thinking, okay, there's so many other apps that already do this. What's special? What's different? So, the goal of Finlet is kind of bring mindfulness to money, especially for the young generation, people like you and I who are in the age group of, let's say, 20 to 25. So the idea here is that we want to give you content that allows you to learn about what personal finance is and how you can not just budget your money but also grow your money and do better things with it. So essentially, Finlect is a place that you could go to learn about what you can do best with your money.
Could you share some examples of people or cases
Yeah,
that has actually, helped and they've come back to you?
for sure. So I'll tell you how Finlect started. Now, Finlect was essentially like we did it initially. There were workshops that the co-founders ran where people were actually writing their expenses in a diary. Okay, and this was supposed to be like a community project where you do the diary expenses and then we tell you, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you should learn, and then you go on from there and we go our way. But what happened is our first ever users came back and they said that, look, I've looked at these expenses and I've realized that I'm spending way too much in places that I don't even give that much, attention to. So I think that the start of Connect was the success because the fact that we realized that there is this huge gap in the kind of access to quality information we have, and the fact that young people want to learn and they want to make their financial lives, their personal finance intellect better, that was our starting point. And I think we've always like tried to kind of fill that gap. So whether it's somebody who comes up to us on Instagram and says, hey, can you help us with this, we don't understand this, or like if the content creators, the editors, none of us are personal finance experts, but we Google, we learn, and we teach each other, and that in a way is our success. The fact that we've created a community of people who are ready to share their knowledge and are ready to constantly learn. I think that's one of the key impact or the success that we have seen. We get the money, we either spend it, or we get the money and we save everything. We don't know what how we should divide it, how we should put it in different boxes, and what we should do with those boxes. And that's a beautiful skill to have that unfortunately we're not taught in schools and universities, or we're not given any access to this kind of an education.
It's interesting that you mentioned mindfulness with. I mean, this is something that I was just thinking about. That it's very interesting to see that you mentioned mindfulness, which is often a term used for emotional intelligence or creative intelligence or spiritual
Right.
intelligence, and it's very rarely used with something like money or finance. And that brings me to my question: that how does one be mindful? How does the youth, maybe three ways of being mindful about money in this kind of pandemic situation?
Quick disclaimer, I'm not a personal finance advisor. I'm not certified. So this is just me giving you advice from my experiences with Finlect and in general. So yeah, so essentially what you need to understand what it means to be mindful with money. We're not asking you to be, miser of the year, save everything. No, that's not the concept that, will help you prosper in your, financial life. There's two things that one must know. There's financial literacy and there's financial capability, right? So financial literacy is you go out there, you learn, you understand what these big jargons mean and how they impact you. So if you read in the newspaper for 5 days, continuously, that the markets are crashing, the financial markets are crashing, don't ignore that. Pick up the newspaper, read about what it is and how it trickles down to you. And the second thing is financial capability, which means what can you do with your money and what can your money do for you.
Yeah.
So once you understood a little bit of how saving, budgeting, investing, earning really is, you need to step back and understand what your relationship with money is going to look like. Are you going to be, a saver, or are you going to be somebody who invests, or are you going to be somebody who strikes a balance? So, what is your type? Once you figure that out, there's ample amount of content and information online and even on applications like Finlect for you to practice those budgeting techniques or those saving techniques or those investing techniques. And this is something that you need to just kind of try and learn. But funnily enough, something I learned from like a family member very recently is that always have enough money in your bank account that if today you lose your job, you lose your degree, or if all hell has gone, like if all hell has gone loose, you can be able to sustain yourself with your current lifestyle at least for the next 6 months, right? So this is the basic, absolute basic. So if let's say God forbid your parents lose their job, you lose your job, it shouldn't be like you're suddenly broke af. We get the money, we either spend it, or we get the money and we save everything. We don't know what, how we should divide it, how we should put it in different boxes, and what we should do with those boxes. And that's a beautiful skill to have that unfortunately, we're not taught in schools and universities, or we're not given any access to this kind of an education. So my uncle told me very recently that a general mindset is that I'm going to spend X amount, and I'm going to, at the end of the month, whatever's left, I'll save that. Now, that's the biggest problem. Don't ever approach money like that. Whenever you get an input of money, whether it's, like I said, like a stipend or a salary or some parent guardian is funding you, take that money, take a certain percentage of it and just keep it on the side and forget about it. That is your saving. And then with whatever's remaining, you start spending. This is absolute basic. And a lot of people don't even know about this. For everybody, it's like, oh, I'm going to spend as much as I like. And then, okay, at the end of the month, I'll have like a couple of bucks left. I'll save that. That's the wrong approach, right? So now if you see these tips and tricks, they're so simple. It's almost like it's common sense. But because we don't think about money like that, we don't realize that it's so easy to, just switch your habits a little bit here and there and make your money work for you. So I want to kind of come back to the main point, that is, being mindful with your money is not a difficult thing. It's not something that takes a lot of effort. It just takes, I think, habit. It takes practice. And that's something that you can learn from Finlect. You can just come on there, try to kind of track your expenses on a daily basis and see if that works for you. If it doesn't, like I said, we're a community. Talk to us, tell us what your challenges are, and then we'll help you, maybe make the process easier for you or simpler or whatever. But step one is build that habit. It's so important.
Totally, I agree, because I still remember the first interview that I did on KariKonnect, and there was this grocery auntie who I had interviewed from Pune, and the very basic tip that I had asked her was that you run a grocery, how do you save?
Yeah.
And this is somebody who I'm talking is running a small quaint grocery store, and even she told me that, and she said, the most basic thing that I do is if I'm getting 1,000, I keep 500 in my bank, so that
Yes.
I know that, okay. And she does this on an everyday basis because she gets money on an everyday basis since she's running a grocery. So
Exactly.
that tip that you said is very, very basic and very, very common. And I think, yes, these are some simple tips that actually end up working, but we often overlook them, in the whole hunt
Yeah.
for like bigger things
Yeah.
to get
I
to.
think another, like just now when you mentioned it, it just kind of struck me. I think it's so important to talk about money with, the people around you. If you feel like your parents, would not encourage this kind of conversation, I think that's the biggest misconception, because everything that I have initially learned about money is from either the adults in the family or by speaking to my friends. So if you have a friend who saves a lot or is using a lot of coupons, I think it's super important to stop making a joke about it and ask them, like, how are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And maybe, okay, yes, it's funny that they use coupons or codes for everything, or if they save a lot of money, but maybe there's a bigger financial goal that they have in their mind that's way more important than what you can see right now in and around you. So I think it's extremely important to start talking about money, to start breaking that stereotype about, oh, I can't share my salary figure with you because
That's very important. That's what I was going to come to.
for whatever reason. Yeah. No, because I think it's super important. Obviously, you can't be holding a banner and walking around telling everybody how much you earn or how much you invest. But with the people that you trust,
Yeah.
it's extremely crucial to discuss it, because A, you get to learn a lot of things, and B, maybe the person you're speaking to has made some mistakes that you're possibly just going to make, and they can just be like, hey, no, don't do this. It's super important.
Yeah, very true. It's necessary to break down the cover that has been created around these subjects, because there are conversations that you go to discuss, and then even though you might be willing to share about money or talk about it, the other person might have an apprehension, because
Exactly.
it's the way culture is built up, it's the way community is in the current scenario, and financial literacy is something that's probably being empowered now through your app,
Yeah.
through other stuff. But before that, there was always that barrier of, okay,
Yes,
should
of
I share
course.
my salary, or is the other person going to think, oh my God, are they going to get jealous? These are all
Yes,
thoughts that exist in society, which are very
exactly.
difficult to break down. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those insights. And
Yeah, I hope that helps, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not a financial expert. Please don't come back to me saying, oh, but you said that. No, this is just my personal advice that I give myself every day. That's it.